It wasn't every day that Dr. Thalassa Cree had to deal with a bureaucratic nightmare on a galactic scale. She thought relocating to the underwater research dome on Europa meant she could escape the drudgeries of Earth, where talking to another human felt like an exhausting exercise in futility. Instead, she was still dealing with humans, only now they were coated in layers of cynicism and stinking of recycled air. "Can you believe this crap?" Thalassa muttered, her eyes scanning the alien transmission that flickered in holographic blue above the conference table. "We're officially a level 0 species, whatever the hell that means." "Sounds about right," snorted Dex, the dome's resident engineer who was perpetually coated in a mix of grease and bad attitude. He leaned back in his chair, boots propped up on the table, a cigarette barely hanging from the corner of his mouth. "We're basically cosmic toddlers but with nuclear capabilities." "Level 0, sighed Dr. Ingrid Voss, the biologist whose psi or disposition could curdle milk. "Sounds like we're the laughing stock of the universe. I mean, who even rates species? Do we get a certificate? And if so, can I set it on fire?" "Probably," Thalassa replied dryly. "But you'd need approval from Central before you burn anything down here, and you know how fast that bureaucracy moves." An awkward silence hung in the air, which was quite a feat considering they were several miles underwater where air was as precious as sanity. Thalassa drummed her fingers on the table, trying to seem more interested in the alien council's opinion than she actually was. "What if they, I don't know, blow us up?" piped up Ravi, the youngest member of the team and the only one still clinging to any sense of optimism. "I mean, level 0 doesn't sound like a compliment." Dex chuckled, smoke curling around his head like a halo for the damned. "Ravi, mate, if they wanted to blow us up, they'd have done it already. You know what they say, if you're going to do a job, don't send it to the committee." "There's always hope," Ravi muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Thalassa leaned forward, staring at the shifting symbols of the transmission. "Hope's a liability. What we need is a plan." "If we're a level 0, then what the hell does a level 1 look like?" "Probably something with less grandiose delusions," Ingrid smirked, taking a sip of what was laughably called coffee but tasted more like disappointment. "Maybe level 1 species have evolved beyond the need for sarcasm," suggested Dex, "which means none of us are making the cut." The room fell silent again, each member of the team lost in their own thoughts about what a post-level 0 future might look like. A countdown to their extinction. A cosmic joke they weren't in on. Ravi fiddled nervously with his tablet, projecting more data into the air. "There's something else," he said. "The transmission. It's not just a classification, there are instructions." Thalassa raised an eyebrow. "Instructions, like a how to stop being idiots manual," Ravi shrugged. "More like don't call us, we'll call you. They want us to cease all space exploration immediately, stay on our planet and basically sit tight." Dex let out a low whistle. "Well, there goes my weekend plans." "Who the hell do they think they are?" Ingrid snapped, her voice rising with indignation. "We've got satellites, we've got rovers, we've got a really bad attitude, sure, but who are they to tell us what to do?" "Probably the parent species," Dex replied, stubbing out his cigarette with a sigh that sounded suspiciously like resignation. "And like any good parent, they want us to stay in our room and think about what we've done." "They can shove it," Thalassa muttered, her gaze hardening. "If there's one thing humans are good at, it's doing exactly what we're told not to do." The room erupted in a dissonant chorus of agreement, each voice carrying the weight of bitter defiance. They might be trapped in a glorified fishbowl under Europa's icy crust, but they were humans, stubborn, irreverent, and more than willing to poke the cosmic bear. "So what's the plan, boss?" Dex asked, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "We gonna play nice or flip the universe the bird?" Thalassa grinned, a feral curve of her lips that promised chaos. "We're gonna do what we do best, piss off the powers that be." Just then, the lights flickered ominously, plunging the room into semi-darkness. A low hum echoed through the dome, setting teeth on edge and nerves on high alert. "What now?" Ingrid groaned, rubbing her temples as if trying to stave off the migraine she was convinced was the universe's gift to her. "Looks like we've got company," Thalassa murmured, her eyes narrowing at the readouts. "And they didn't bring cake." Ravi's face paled as he stared at his screen. "There's a ship entering orbit and it's not one of ours." "Wonderful," Dex drawled, pulling a flask from his jacket and taking a swig. "I was just thinking we needed more friends." Thalassa stood, her chair scraping against the floor with a grating sound that perfectly matched her mood. "All right, people, let's get this show on the road. If they want to make contact, we'll give them a warm human welcome." "Like a handshake with a joy buzzer?" Ingrid asked, sarcasm dripping from every word. "More like a handshake with a fist," Thalassa replied. "After all, we're level 0. What have we got to lose?" With a collective shrug, the team moved to their stations, ready to greet their unexpected visitors with the characteristic blend of human stubbornness and gallows humor. They were inexorably human, flawed, defiant, and always willing to fight even when the odds were stacked against them. As the dome systems lit up in preparation for the alien encounter, Thalassa couldn't help but feel a surge of dark amusement. Here they were, humanity's so-called last hope, armed with nothing but bad jokes and worse tempers. "Let's show them what level 0 really means," she muttered, a wicked grin tugging at her lips. Because if there was one thing the universe needed to understand, it was that humanity wouldn't go quietly. Not now, not ever. The lights in the dome flickered again, this time accompanied by an ominous rumble that made the metal walls groan like an old man getting out of bed. Somewhere, something was pissed off or about to break. Or both. This was Europa, after all. Things were always on the verge of catastrophe. "Great, just great," Dex muttered, pushing back from the table with a disgruntled sigh. "It's not enough that we've got interstellar Bizabod breathing down our necks. Now the dome's throwing a fit." "Think it's sabotage?" Ravi asked, his voice quivering slightly with youthful zeal, optimism's last stand. "Sabotage. More like the dome's finally realized it's held together by nothing but duct tape and good intentions," Ingrid replied, her voice as dry as the recycled air. "But hey, maybe we're being haunted by a vengeful level 1 ghost." Thalassa crossed her arms, the weight of her gaze settling on Dex. "You're the engineer. Thoughts?" Dex scratched his stubbled chin, a dubious look on his face as he scanned the readouts. "Could be anything. Power fluctuations, faulty wiring, ghosts of engineers past who forgot to tighten a bolt. Hell, it could even be the experiment." Ravi perked up, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "The cloning experiment?" "Yeah, the cloning experiment," Dex said, rolling his eyes. "The one we swore on a stack of red tape we'd never mention. You remember, right?" Thalassa shot Dex a stern look. "Let's not jump to conclusions. Last thing we need is panic mixed with whatever's already circling the drain." "Isn't that just a Tuesday for us?" Ingrid quipped, a sardonic smile tugging at her lips. "Tuesday with a side of alien invasion," Dex added. "Should have packed my good underwear." Thalassa ignored them, focusing instead on Ravi, who was rapidly cycling through data streams. "Can you figure out what's disrupting the systems? Maybe we can narrow it down before we're left in the dark." Ravi nodded eagerly, fingers flying over his tablet. "On it, boss. Give me a second." "Take your time," Dex called out, grabbing another cigarette from his pocket. "It's not like we've got a countdown to disaster or anything." Meanwhile, Ingrid had connected to the dome's mainframe, scrolling through lines of code with the kind of intensity usually reserved for staring into the abyss. "There's definitely something hinky going on here. It's like someone tried to reroute the power, but they did it with the finesse of a drunken space pirate." "Well, that's reassuring," Thalassa muttered. "Any ideas on who or what?" Ingrid shrugged. "Could be external, could be internal, or it could be Dex's ghosts of engineers past. Maybe they want revenge for all the bad coffee." Ingrid's eyes flicked up from her screen, locking onto Thalassa's. "We're not exactly popular, you know. What with being humanity's last hope and all. Makes you wonder if someone's trying to expedite our failure." Thalassa nodded, not needing the reminder of their precarious position. "Keep digging. We need answers before we're knee-deep in melted circuits. Got something, Ravi piped up, enthusiasm barely masking his nerves. Looks like an energy spike from the lower levels. Could be the cloning lab. Marvelous, Dex drawled, exhaling smoke like a disgruntled dragon. We're either going to get overrun by aliens or by ourselves. Talk about narcissistic doom. So what do we do? Ravi asked, wide-eyed and hopeful for a plan that didn't end in catastrophe. Thalassa rubbed her temples, feeling the press of a headache that had nothing to do with pressure changes. First, we check the lab. If it is the clones, we shut it down before they start demanding equal rights or, worse, a pension. And if it's not the clones, Ingrid asked, her voice a mix of curiosity and cynicism. Then we hope the aliens are feeling chatty rather than destructive, Thalassa replied. Either way, someone needs to keep an eye on that ship. Already on it, Dex interrupted, leaning over to the console and typing with one hand, keeping the cigarette perched precariously in the other. Thalassa gestured for Ravi and Ingrid to follow her. Let's head to the lab. If we're about to have a clone uprising, I'd rather it not be in my office. As they left the conference room, Dex called out, "Hey, don't forget to bring a mirror. Might be handy for negotiations." The corridor to the lab made them feel like they were walking through the intestines of a particularly irritable metal beast, each step echoing with the potential for disaster. The lights flickered more frequently now, casting the world in a strobe light effect that would have been fun if it weren't a harbinger of doom. "Remind me," Ravi said, breaking the tension with the innocence of someone not yet jaded. "Why did we start cloning in the first place?" Thalassa grimaced. "Officially, to study human adaptability. Unofficially, because someone up top wanted to see if we could make our own workforce while stuck on this icy ball. And how's that working out for us?" Ingrid asked, sarcasm dripping from every word. "About as well as you'd expect," Thalassa replied. "Turns out, even clones don't want to work for free." They reached the lab, the door sliding open with a whisper of hydraulics that suggested the room was still functional. A small mercy. Inside, the lab was a sterile white, counterpointed by the chaotic jumble of equipment and inexplicable clutter that only scientists could call organization. Ravi moved to the main console, his fingers flying across the screen. "Looks like the clones are stable. No one's broken out and started a riot, yet. Good to know we're not in the middle of a clone revolt," Ingrid said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Then what's causing the power surges?" Thalassa crossed her arms, considering the possibilities. Could be interference from the alien ship. Or maybe our little secret experiment is drawing more power than we anticipated. "Always the optimist," Ingrid muttered, turning to Ravi. "Can you divert power from non-essential systems? Maybe we can stabilize things without setting off alarms." Ravi nodded, already working on it. "On it. But it might take a few minutes." "Let's hope those few minutes aren't our last," Thalassa said, glancing around the room as if expecting something to jump out and shout boo. Silence settled over the lab, broken only by the hum of machinery and the soft beeping of monitors. The clones floated serenely in their tanks, blissfully unaware of the chaos outside their glass cocoons. "If only we could be so blissfully ignorant," Ingrid murmured, staring at one of the tanks with a mixture of envy and disdain. Ravi, for once, had no comeback, his attention focused on recalibrating the system. The seconds ticked by with the weight of minutes, time stretching like a rubber band pulled taut. "Done," Ravi finally said, stepping back with a relieved sigh. "Power diverted." "That should help. Good work," Thalassa said, allowing herself a rare moment of approval. "Let's hope it buys us some time." They returned to the conference room where Dex was waiting, his expression a mix of boredom and mild annoyance. "Welcome back to the circus. I've got more bad news." "Of course you do," Thalassa replied, bracing herself for the next wave of calamity. "The ship in orbit, it's not alone anymore. Looks like it's calling in reinforcements." "Great. Just what we needed," Ingrid said, sinking into a chair with the grace of someone who'd just given up on life. Ravi's eyes widened. What do we do now? Thalassa leaned against the table, her mind racing through possibilities that all ended with various degrees of unpleasantness. We do what humans do best, bluff, bluster, and hope they underestimate our stupidity. Sounds like a plan, Dex said, his grin as lopsided as his optimism. If they want to chat, maybe they'd like to meet their clones. Let's keep that as plan B, Thalassa replied dryly. For now, let's monitor their movements. If they make a move, we respond in kind. No sense in showing our hand too soon. Agreed, Ingrid said, her voice carrying a note of caution. Let's hope they're just curious and not looking to start an interstellar incident. Optimism from you, Ingrid. I must be dreaming, Dex said with a mock gasp, earning him a glare from the biologist. Dream or nightmare, take your pick, Ingrid retorted, the faintest hint of a smirk tugging at her lips. Thalassa shook her head, exasperation mingling with a reluctant smile. Despite everything, there was something oddly comforting about their irreverent banter, a reminder that as long as they could laugh in the face of doom, they were still human. All right, Thalassa said, her voice steady and determined. Let's get to work. We're not going down without a fight. As the team settled into their roles, the promise of chaos loomed large, but so did the stubborn hope that humanity had yet to break. Whatever happened next, they were ready, or at least willing to pretend they were. Because if the universe wanted to test them, it had better be ready for the most unpredictable, sarcastic, and stubborn level 0 species it would ever encounter. Thalassa Kree's office was a cluttered mess, an organized chaos that mimicked her mind. Stacks of reports flirted with the edge of the desk, threatening to tip over with every shudder from the dome. The place smelled faintly of burnt coffee and desperation, a signature scent of human perseverance on Europa. Dex leaned against the doorway, his silhouette outlined by the flickering hallway lights. So, Doctor. Kree, what's our next trick? Pull a rabbit out of a helmet. Thalassa didn't bother looking up from her terminal. If by rabbit you mean a solution to our alien surveillance problem, then yes, I'm working on it. If you meant something useful, we're screwed. Dex snorted, flicking ash from his cigarette onto the floor. Surveillance? I thought they were just here for the show. Funny thing about aliens, they don't do matinees. Our latest data stream from the scanners suggests they're paying a little too much attention to our cloning experiments. Great. So, in addition to speeding toward disaster, we now have a cosmic audience. Hope they're not expecting an encore. Thalassa rubbed her temples. We need to accelerate our research. If they're monitoring us, they're either curious, concerned, or compiling a shopping list of our screw-ups. So, what's the plan? Make him a mixtape of our finest moments. Dex's sarcasm dripped like oil on water. More like put on a show of competence, Thalassa replied, finally looking up. We'll turn up the heat on our adaptability projects. Show them we can evolve, or at least fake it till we make it. Ah, the classic fake it till they leave approach. Bold strategy, Cotton. Thalassa shot him a pointed look. You're not helping. Wasn't trying to, Dex said, wandering over to the holographic display. The alien transmission glowed in an unsettling shade of blue, a constant reminder that their lives were under cosmic scrutiny. So what about our clone friends? You know, the ones blissfully unaware they're one power surge away from spontaneous emancipation. That's the other problem, Thalassa admitted. One of them's been showing signs of instability. Instability? What, like existential dread, or more of a Hulk smash vibe? More like a Hulk smash vibe. Ravi picked up a fluctuation in its bio readings. Could be nothing, could be everything. Dex scratched his chin, leaving a smudge of soot. So, either we get a super clone or a super problem. Exactly. Well, ain't that just the cherry on our disaster sundae? Thalassa's terminal beeped, signaling an incoming message from Ingrid. She scrolled through it quickly, her expression growing more serious. Ingrid's with Ravi in the lab. She says the clone's vitals are tanking. If we don't stabilize it, we're looking at a catastrophic failure. Ever the bearer of good news, Dex remarked, stubbing out his cigarette on the edge of Thalassa's desk. Guess that means we should head to the lab before things go from bad to worse. Or before the aliens decide to write a review, Thalassa said, standing up. Let's move. The corridors echoed with their rushed footsteps, the dome's groans and creaks playing a symphony of impending doom. The overhead lights flickered ominously as if mocking their urgency. "Remind me why we're still here," Dex muttered, sidestepping a puddle that looked suspiciously like coolant. "Because we're stubborn, stupid, or both," Thalassa replied. "And because no one else would take the job." They reached the lab, where Ravi and Ingrid were huddled over the console, expressions grim as they monitored the clone's vitals. The tank holding the clone glowed a sickly green, its occupant floating like an oversized embryo. "What's the status?" Thalassa asked, her voice all business as she approached. Ravi glanced up, a glint of worry in his eyes. "Not good, boss. Biosignals are erratic and the neural interface is glitching out. It's like the clone's trying to break free, literally. And figuratively," Ingrid added, her fingers dancing over the keyboard. "I've rerouted power to the stabilization unit, but it's a temporary fix. We need permanent solutions, not band-aids," Thalassa said, frustration bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "Well, unless you've got a miracle tucked in your back pocket, this is as permanent as it gets," Ingrid snapped. Dex peered into the tank, his reflection ghostly in the glass. "So what happens if it fails? We get a new dome mate." "More like a dome breaker," Ravi corrected. "If the interface overloads, the clone could breach containment, and given its current state, that'd be unfortunate." "Unfortunate," Thalassa echoed. "Try catastrophic." They all stood in tense silence, the hum of machinery filling the void. The clone, oblivious to the chaos it was causing, floated in its tank, a symbol of human ambition teetering on the edge of ruin. "What about a manual override?" Dex suggested, breaking the silence. "We could reset the system, give it a chance to reboot." "Could work," Ravi said, already considering the possibility. "But it's risky. If the reset fails, the clone's vitals could flatline. And if we do nothing, we're still screwed," Ingrid pointed out. Thalassa weighed her options, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down like Europa's icy grip. "Do it," she decided. "Better to risk it than wait for disaster to make the choice for us." Ravi nodded, determination stealing his features. "Okay, let's give this a shot." He moved to the console, fingers flying over the keys with practiced precision. The rest of them watched, tension crackling in the air like static electricity. "Initiating manual override," Ravi announced, voice steady despite the stakes. The lab fell silent, save for the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the low thrum of the dome's life support systems. The clone's vitals flickered on the screen, a heartbeat away from calamity. "Come on, you stubborn piece of biotech," Dex muttered under his breath, as if sheer willpower could influence technology. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the vitals began to stabilize, the erratic peaks and valleys smoothing into a more regular pattern. "Vitals are stabilizing," Ravi said, relief evident in his voice. "It's working." Thalassa exhaled, tension leaving her in a rush. "Good job, everyone. Let's keep monitoring it to make sure it holds." "Another crisis averted," Dex quipped, though the relief in his tone was real. "Wonder how many more we can dodge before something lands." "Enough," Thalassa said, though she knew the universe had a twisted sense of humor when it came to hope. They returned their attention to the clone, its form serene behind the glass. It was a reminder of humanity's potential and folly, a living testament to their hubris and ingenuity. "Think it'll hold?" Ingrid asked, skepticism laced with a hint of hope. "It has to," Thalassa replied. "Because if it doesn't, we're out of options." The lab door slid open and Dex leaned against the frame, watching the clone with a contemplative look. "You know, if we survive this, we should really consider charging for this kind of entertainment. Come for the science, stay for the high-stakes drama." Thalassa chuckled despite herself. "I'll add it to the brochure." The moment of levity was short-lived, interrupted by an urgent alert on Thalassa's terminal. The alien transmission had changed, the holographic display now showing a pattern that pulsed with an ominous rhythm. "Looks like our audience is getting restless," Dex observed, nodding toward the display. Thalassa frowned, a knot of unease settling in her stomach. "They're signaling something." But what? Could be anything, Ingrid said, studying the pattern with a critical eye. Advance warning, a call for reinforcements, or just a cosmic doorbell. Whatever it is, we need to be ready, Thalassa said. Dex, keep monitoring the transmission. Ingrid, Ravi, stay on the clone stabilization. We can't afford any more surprises. Or any more ratings, Dex added dryly. Thalassa nodded, her gaze lingering on the alien display. They were a level 0 species, outmatched and outgunned, but humans had a knack for survival, even when the odds were laughably slim. As the team returned to their tasks, Thalassa couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, judged by eyes that saw them as little more than cosmic curiosities. But if the universe thought they were pushovers, it was in for a rude awakening. Because humans were a stubborn breed, and the cosmos was about to find out just how tenacious a level 0 species could be. The lab felt like a pressure cooker, with everyone on edge and ready to snap like an old rubber band. The clones' vitals were stable for now, but that was the least of their worries. Thalassa eyed the holographic display, trying to decipher the alien transmission's cryptic pattern. It was like trying to read a cosmic Rorschach test, and she wasn't in the mood for abstract art. Dex leaned in, squinting at the display. You know, the way this is going, I half expect it to start showing cat videos. Maybe the aliens are just studying us to make the universe's most depressing reality TV show. Let's hope they're not looking for a season finale, Ingrid muttered, her gaze fixed on the clone tank. Because if this goes pear-shaped, they're going to get one hell of a cliffhanger. Ravi tapped away at his tablet, his youthful enthusiasm a stark contrast to the seasoned cynicism of his colleagues. I've been running a diagnostic on the stabilization unit. Found something odd. He hesitated, knowing the reaction this would provoke. Define odd, Thalassa said, her tone like a surgeon asking how close the knife was to an artery. Well, odd as in not supposed to be there. Looks like someone tampered with the power routing. Could explain why the clone nearly went postal on us. Dex puffed out his cheeks, exhaling slowly. Perfect. Just what we needed. Sabotage. Because juggling unstable clones and alien scrutiny wasn't exciting enough. Ingrid crossed her arms, suspicion clouding her features. So we've got a saboteur in the dome. Lovely. Any idea who the traitorous bastard might be? No names yet, Ravi admitted, but I can trace the tampering to specific access logs. Give me some time and I might be able to pinpoint the culprit. Thalassa rubbed her temples, her head pounding like a bass drum in a rock band. All right, let's keep this under wraps. Last thing we need is a witch hunt while we're trying to keep the place from blowing up. Yeah, because the only thing worse than a saboteur is a paranoid mob, Dex quipped. Maybe we should start handing out pitchforks and torches. Focus, Thalassa snapped, though she appreciated the humor in his gallows wit. Dex, keep an eye on the alien transmission. Ingrid, assist Ravi with the access logs. We need answers, and we need them yesterday. The team dispersed, each absorbed in their tasks, the tension between them as brittle as glass. Thalassa returned to her terminal, trying to juggle a dozen crises with the grace of a one-legged acrobat. The alien transmission loomed over her like a storm cloud, a constant reminder that they were dancing on the edge of oblivion. Think the aliens are onto us? Dex asked, breaking the silence. Probably, Thalassa replied. But they may as well be watching paint dry. As far as entertainment goes, we must be a real letdown. Dex snorted. Speak for yourself. Some of us are putting on a hell of a show. Thalassa couldn't deny it. If anyone could make a catastrophe entertaining, it was Dex. But humor had its limits, and right now they were stretching them thin. Iors ticked by, the dome's usual creaks and groans serving as a soundtrack to their increasingly desperate efforts. The alien transmission remained unchanged, its rhythmic pulsing a cosmic taunt. Thalassa felt the weight of the unknown pressing down, a reminder that they were playing a game with rules they didn't understand. Got something, Ravi announced, breaking the silence. His voice carried a mix of excitement and trepidation like a kid who just found a treasure map next to a bear trap. What is it? Thalassa asked, moving to stand beside him. Ravi pointed to his tablet, lines of code scrolling past. Traced the tampering back to a specific user log. It's been masked, but not well enough. Whoever it was got sloppy. Sloppy's good, Dex said, joining them. Means they're not a pro, or they are overconfident, Ingrid added, her eyes narrowing as she studied the data. Thalassa scanned the logs, her heart sinking as a familiar user ID surfaced. Damn it, I should have known. Who? Dex asked, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. Dr. Voss, Thalassa replied, her voice heavy with disappointment. Ingrid? There was a moment of stunned silence, the revelation hitting like a punch to the gut. Ingrid's face was a mask of disbelief, her words choking out like splinters. Thalassa, I swear I didn't. It's not my log, Ingrid protested, her frustration boiling over. Someone must have used my credentials. You know I wouldn't sabotage us. Thalassa wanted to believe her, she really did. But the evidence was damning, and trust was a luxury they could ill afford. We'll get to the bottom of this, she said, choosing her words with care. For now, we keep our eyes open and stay focused. Ingrid nodded, though her expression was tight with anger and something else, fear maybe. If I find out who did this, I swear You'll do nothing, Thalassa interrupted, her tone firm. We'll handle this together without turning on each other. Agreed. Reluctantly, Ingrid nodded. Agreed. The tension in the room was palpable, a simmering cauldron of suspicion and resentment. Thalassa knew they were walking a razor's edge, one misstep away from chaos. Let's double-check the clone's containment, she said, forcing herself to focus on the immediate threat. If there's sabotage involved, we can't take any chances. Ravi and Ingrid returned to the console, their fingers flying over the keys with renewed urgency. Dex hovered near the holographic display, his gaze flicking between the transmission and the team. You think the aliens know about the sabotage? He asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Hard to say, Thalassa replied. But if they do, it's another reason to keep it contained. We can't afford any more slip-ups. Dex nodded, his expression thoughtful. You know, if we survive this, I might just quit science and become a historian, much less stressful. Thalassa managed a small smile. History's just as messy, Dex, but at least it doesn't usually explode in your face. The Iors dragged on, each minute feeling like an eternity. The team worked in grim silence, the only sounds the rhythmic tapping of keys and the soft hum of machinery. Every so often, Thalassa glanced at the alien transmission, its unchanging pattern a constant reminder of their precarious situation. Clone's containment is secure, Ravi reported, breaking the tension. No signs of tampering, at least not here. Small mercies, Dex commented. But I'd still sleep with one eye open, Ingrid sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. At this rate, who needs sleep? I'll just develop insomnia and call it a lifestyle choice. Thalassa chuckled despite herself. Just don't start a trend. We need all the functioning brains we can get. Noted, Ingrid replied, a hint of a smile breaking through her weary facade. For a moment, it seemed like things might just hold together. But Thalassa knew better than to let her guard down. The universe had a way of kicking you when you were already down, and she wasn't about to give it another opening. As the team settled back into their routines, Thalassa's mind churned with possibilities and contingencies. They were up against the clock, a saboteur in their midst, and an alien audience whose intentions remained maddeningly opaque. But they'd faced long odds before, and if anything, it only made them more determined to succeed. Hey, boss, Dex said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. When this is all over, how about we open a bar? Call it level 0. Why not? Thalassa replied, her voice laced with dry humor. We can serve drinks named after our worst failures, the clone catastrophe, the alien ambush, the saboteur's delight. Sounds like a plan, Ingrid chimed in, her smile genuine this time. I'll raise a glass to that, Ravi chuckled. Count me in. I'll take anything over this pressure cooker. For the first time in what felt like forever, Thalassa felt a flicker of hope. They were battered, bruised, and on the brink of chaos, but somehow they were still standing. And as long as they could laugh in the face of disaster, there was a chance, a slim, improbable chance of coming out on top. Because if the universe thought it could break them, it was in for one hell of a surprise. A level 0 species might not have much going for it, but they had grit, determination, and an unyielding ability to adapt. And that, Thalassa thought, was worth more than all the alien tech in the galaxy. The Europa Underwater Research Dome, a bastion of human ingenuity and duct tape, now officially in the running for the universe's most dysfunctional workplace. The saboteur's revelation hovered over the team like an awkward family secret, the kind that makes holiday dinners just a touch more tense. And unsurprisingly, things were going to hell faster than a comet on a collision course. Thalassa Cree, resident ringleader of this three-ring circus, paced her office. It was a cluttered mess that looked like it had been decorated by a tornado with a penchant for paperwork. The smell of burnt coffee was as persistent as the existential dread that came with their task. "All right, people," Thalassa announced, gathering the team in the lab which felt as welcoming as a pressure cooker. "We've got a problem, and it's the size of Jupiter's ego." Dex leaned against a console, arms crossed, his expression a mix of amusement and resignation. "I dunno, Jupiter's got some pretty big moons." "Think our problems are bigger?" "Only if you count the fact that we're currently starring in the cosmic version of a reality show where nobody wins," Ravi chimed in, fiddling with his tablet. He'd become the tech guy by default, mostly because he showed a remarkable ability to not set things on fire. "Focus," Thalassa snapped, though her smile betrayed her appreciation for Gallo's humor. "Our systems are failing faster than my last relationship, and Ingrid's user log makes her look like a prime suspect in this sabotage mess." Ingrid's face was a thundercloud of indignation. "I've said it before, and I'll say it again, it's not me. Someone's using my credentials, and it's not to make dinner reservations." "Which is a shame," Dex quipped. "I hear the seafood on Europa is to die for." The team's laughter was a brief respite from the tension, though it didn't change the fact that the dome was about as stable as a politician's promise. All right, Thalassa continued. "The Alien Council just sent us another transmission. Probably a strongly worded warning about keeping our toddler-like species from playing with sharp objects. Or they're just pissed off because our chaos is ruining their view," Dex said, gesturing toward the holographic display showing the alien transmission's cryptic pattern. "It's like watching a particularly bad soap opera. Minus the catchy theme music. Let's hope they don't switch to the horror channel," Ravi muttered, his eyes glued to his tablet. "I've got a gut feeling that we're heading for the final act here." Thalassa sighed, the weight of her responsibilities pressing down like a malfunctioning gravity sim. "Look, we need to get ahead of this. Check every system, every log, find out how deep this sabotage goes. If we don't, the aliens might decide to cancel our series. Permanently." They scattered like cockroaches under a flashlight, each diving into their tasks with a mixture of determination and mounting anxiety. The dome creaked ominously as if it could feel their desperation and was joining in on the act. "Ravi, any luck tracking down who used Ingrid's credentials?" Thalassa asked, sidling up to him. Her voice was a low murmur conspiratorial. Ravi shook his head, frustration etched across his features. "Nothing concrete yet. It's like chasing shadows. Whoever did this knows their way around our systems better than me." "Great," Thalassa muttered. "Just what we need. A shadowy mastermind with a vendetta against interior design." Nearby, Ingrid was hunched over a terminal, her fingers dancing across the keys with a mixture of irritation and determination. Dex hovered behind her like an eager intern, offering unsolicited commentary on her every move. "You know, Ingrid, if you really are the saboteur, you've got a great career in espionage ahead of you," he teased, earning a glare that could have melted steel. "If I was the saboteur, Dex, you'd be the first one I'd throw out an airlock." Ingrid shot back, her eyes never leaving the screen. "Promises, promises," Dex replied with a mock sigh. But seriously, we need to stick together. Last thing we want is to start pointing fingers and lose sight of the real issue. Thalassa nodded, grateful for the reminder. Dex is right. We're all in this together whether we like it or not. The Iors drip by like water torture, each tick of the clock a reminder of their imminent doom. They worked tirelessly, minds locked in a battle against an unseen enemy. As if on cue, the dome shuddered, lights flickering ominously. The machinery emitted a sound somewhere between a dying cat and a rusty hinge, a sure sign that things were about to go from bad to worse. "Okay, what fresh hell is this?" Thalassa muttered, scrambling toward the main console. "Power's fluctuating," Ravi called out, his voice laced with urgency. "We're losing stabilizers. If it goes, we'll be swimming with the fish." And not in the fun snorkeling way. "Get on it," Thalassa barked, eyes scanning the screens. The alien transmission pulsed steadily, a silent witness to their impending disaster. Ingrid was already on her feet, grabbing tools like a surgeon preparing for an emergency operation. "Let's see if we can jury-rig this thing before we end up on the menu." "Ravi, check those access logs again," Thalassa ordered. "We need to find our meddler before they bring down the whole circus." Ravi nodded, his fingers flying over the screen, a symphony of taps and swipes. "On it. If there's a trail, I'll find it." Dex glanced between them, his usual humor replaced by grim determination. "You think this is the aliens' way of telling us we've overstayed our welcome? More like a not-so-gentle reminder that level zeros should stick to sandcastles and finger painting," Thalassa replied, her voice tight with stress. Iors stretched into eternity, the dome systems wheezing like a geriatric on the last leg of a marathon. The alien transmission remained unchanged, its cryptic message a constant taunt. Finally, Ravi broke the silence, his voice tinged with triumph. "Gotcha, you sneaky bastard." Everyone turned toward him, hope lighting their faces like a flare in the dark. "What is it?" Thalassa asked, crossing the room in record time. "I traced it back," Ravi said, his excitement tempered by caution. "It's not just one person, it's a backdoor in the system." "Looks like it was set up months ago." "Months ago?" Dex echoed, incredulous. "Then why show their hand now? Who says they did?" Ingrid said, eyes narrowing. "Maybe it's been running on autopilot, triggered by something we did." Thalassa's mind raced, connecting dots that refused to form a coherent picture. "The cloning experiment," she murmured, the realization dawning. "It's the only thing we've done differently." "The aliens, they must be monitoring it closely," Dex snorted. "Great. Our clones are the reality TV stars of the galaxy. I hope they're at least getting good ratings." "Focus," Thalassa snapped, though her lips twitched in reluctant amusement. "If that's true, then we're not just dealing with sabotage, we're dealing with alien intervention. So the question is," Ingrid said, her voice low and serious, "do we shut down the experiment or risk pushing the aliens too far?" The decision loomed large, a sword of Damocles hanging over their heads. "We need more data," Thalassa said finally. "Ravi, dig deeper. Find out what triggers that backdoor." "Ingrid, Dex, secure the clones. If we're going to do this, we need to cover our asses." As they dispersed, Thalassa couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, evaluated like bugs under a magnifying glass. The pressure was suffocating, the weight of their decisions crushing. But they weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. "Hey," Dex said, sidling up to Thalassa as she stared at the alien transmission. "You ever think about what you'd do if you weren't stuck in this tin can trying not to blow up?" Thalassa let out a long breath, her gaze distant. "Yeah, sometimes. But then I remember that I'd probably be bored senseless without a constant life-or-death struggle." Dex grinned. "What can I say? Danger's addictive." She shot him a wry look. "That explains your social life." The banter was a lifeline, a reminder of their shared humanity in the face of cosmic indifference. Thalassa returned to her terminal, fingers poised above the keys. The alien message continued to pulse ominously, a countdown to an unknown deadline. "Let's just hope," Thalassa murmured to herself, that we get to write the ending to this story before someone else decides it's time to roll the credits. As if in response, the dome groaned, a symphony of protest against the mounting pressure. But in spite of the chaos, the uncertainty, and the ever-present threat of annihilation, Thalassa felt a flicker of defiance. They were a level 0 species, yes. But they were scrappy, stubborn, and unwilling to go quietly into the cosmic night. And that, Thalassa thought with a grim smile, was worth a damn in any universe. "Let's get to work," she called out, rallying her team. "We've got a show to run, and we're not bowing out just yet." The battle was far from over, but they'd faced long odds before. And if the cosmos wanted a fight, then it had picked the wrong group of humans to underestimate. Because as anyone who'd ever crossed paths with Thalassa Cree knew, she didn't like to lose. Not now, not ever. Thalassa Cree stood at the edge of Europa's underwater research dome, staring at the chaos reflected in the cracked holographic display. A kaleidoscope of alien symbols danced mockingly, as if they were an experimental art piece titled, "How to Screw with Humans." That's when the thought struck her. What if they used the one thing that had been a thorn in their side, the cloning technology, in a way the aliens wouldn't expect? If life gave you lemons, you genetically engineered them to explode in someone's face. "All right, team," Thalassa said, turning to face her motley crew. "I've got a plan. It's a little risky, maybe a touch insane, but it just might show the aliens we're not just bumbling around down here." Dex, who had been leaning against a console with an expression like someone who'd just bitten into a particularly sour piece of space fruit, raised an eyebrow. "Risky and insane. You sure you're not secretly the one who tampered with the stabilizers?" "Ha ha," Thalassa deadpanned. "Listen up. What if we tweak the cloning tech to transmit an unexpected signal, something that says, hey, we're smarter than you think? We could use the clones to send coded messages, something the aliens wouldn't see coming. Prove humanity's worth by showing we can adapt, innovate." Ravi looked up from his tablet, where he had been methodically sweeping through logs with the enthusiasm of someone cleaning out a clogged drain. "So you're suggesting we turn our clones into messengers? Use them to outsmart beings who probably have a few millennia on us in the brains department?" "Exactly," Thalassa replied. "If we pull it off, we'll show them we're more than just a level 0 mess. We're adaptable, resourceful, and let's face it, too stubborn to just roll over." Ingrid, still nursing a grudge against whoever had used her credentials, crossed her arms. "And what's to stop them from seeing this as another reason to wipe us off the map? We mess up, we might just be writing our own obituaries." "We're already on the edge, Ingrid," Thalassa said, trying to project more confidence than she felt. "This is a move that might just tilt the board in our favor." Dex rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "You know, this might actually be crazy enough to work. And hey, if it doesn't, at least we'll go down swinging." "That's the spirit," Thalassa said, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "Ravi, can you rig the tech to send out those signals?" Ravi shrugged, his face a mixture of doubt and determination. "I can try. Won't be easy, though. Our systems are about as reliable as a politician's promise, remember." "Just do your best," Thalassa said. "We've got nothing to lose except, everything." The team dispersed to their respective tasks, and Thalassa found herself alone for a moment, the gravity of their situation heavy in the air. For a species that was supposed to be taking baby steps into the cosmic pool, they sure had a talent for diving headfirst into the deep end. "Hey, Thalassa," Dex called, interrupting her thoughts. "You ever think about what we'll do if this actually works?" "Survive another day, probably," she replied. "Then maybe take up a hobby that doesn't involve interstellar politics or things that want us dead." Dex chuckled. "Knitting space socks, perhaps. Or deep-sea fishing," Thalassa suggested, as the dome creaked ominously around them. "If this place doesn't become a fish tank first." With the plan set in motion, the team split into action. Ingrid and Dex worked to secure the clones, which were less stable than a rogue asteroid. Ravi disappeared into the tech room, cursing under his breath about outdated systems and cosmic toddlers needing a nap. Thalassa returned to her cluttered office, the smell of burnt coffee a constant reminder of her caffeine-fueled existence. She powered up her terminal, fingers flying across the keyboard as she accessed the alien transmission logs. If they were going to send a message, they needed to understand the language of their cosmic neighbors, or at least fake it convincingly. Hours passed, the dome's lights flickering intermittently like a cheap horror movie set. The team communicated in terse snippets, each voice laced with exhaustion but undercut by a thread of hope. "Ravi," Thalassa called through the comms, "how's it going with the tech?" "About as well as you'd expect when you're trying to get a brick to sing opera," Ravi's voice came back, full of weary sarcasm. "But I think I've got something. We can piggyback a signal through the stabilization unit. It's a long shot, but better than nothing." "Good. Let's roll with it," Thalassa said. "Dex, any luck with the clones?" "They are as stable as a one-legged stool," Dex replied. "But they are holding for now." "Great news," Thalassa said, her tone laden with irony. "Ingrid, how's our backup plan looking?" "Redundant systems are in place," Ingrid reported, her voice steady. "If all else fails, we can trigger a shutdown. Won't be pretty, but it's better than imploding." "Thanks," Thalassa said, genuine gratitude in her voice. "All right, everyone, let's make some noise." They reconvened in the main control room, the air heavy with anticipation and the faint hum of machinery struggling against its own obsolescence. Ravi stood by the main console, fingers poised like a pianist ready to play a particularly challenging piece. "Ready when you are," he said, glancing nervously at the monitors. Thalassa nodded, drawing a deep breath. "Let's do it. Fire up the signal." Ravi's fingers danced over the keys, a symphony of taps as he navigated the outdated interface. The screen flickered, displaying a cascade of data that seemed to flicker with its own kind of life. The dome trembled, an ominous reminder of their precarious situation. But as the signal transmitted, the air seemed to crackle with the kind of possibility that only comes with a gamble. "Incoming message," Ravi said, eyes wide as he read the data streaming across the screen. "I think they're responding." Thalassa's heart thudded in her chest like a bass drum. "Put it up on the display." The room fell silent as the alien symbology flashed on-screen, more vibrant and active than ever before. It was as if their message had awakened something, stirred a response that was both curious and, hopefully, not hostile. "Can you translate?" Thalassa asked, her voice hushed. "Sort of," Ravi said, squinting at the monitor. "Looks like they're interested, they want to know more. Or they're just fascinated by our ability to make things worse," Dex suggested, though his voice held a note of optimism. "Whatever it is," Thalassa said, "it's a start. We've got their attention." The room was a tense mix of relief and caution. They had taken a step into the unknown, and while the outcome was far from certain, they were at least on their feet. "All right," Thalassa said, turning to face her team. "We've shown them what we can do. Now we need to keep it up. Ravi, work on stabilizing that signal. Ingrid, keep those clones from having a meltdown. Dex, make sure our systems hold together long enough to see this through." Ingrid nodded, her initial skepticism giving way to determination. "We've come this far, might as well see it through." Dex flashed a thumbs up, his usual levity tempered by a sense of purpose. "For science and not dying horribly." "And Ravi," Thalassa added, "keep working on understanding what they're saying. If we can respond in a way that shows we're serious, we might actually pull this off." "Got it," Ravi said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "This is one hell of a first contact." With a new sense of urgency, the team set to work. The dome groaned in protest, but they ignored it, focused on the task at hand. It was a gamble, but Thalassa knew that sometimes the only way forward was to roll the dice and hope for the best. As they worked, the alien transmission continued to pulse with a life of its own, as if the universe itself was watching, waiting to see what the plucky humans would do next. Thalassa paused for a moment, looking at her team. They were tired, haggard, but filled with a resolve that was almost palpable. It was a moment that captured the essence of humanity, scrappy, defiant, and just a little bit reckless. "Hey," Dex said, breaking her thoughts. "You ever think maybe we're just too stubborn to fail?" Thalassa chuckled, the sound a rare burst of levity amidst the tension. "Yeah, Dex, I think that might just be our superpower." With that, they returned to the work at hand, driven by the hope that they could outsmart the odds stacked against them. They were a level 0 species, sure. But they were also human, and that meant they weren't out of the fight yet. As the Iors dragged on, the alien symbols continued to pulse, a reminder of the challenge they faced. It was a race against time, against the unknown, but they were determined to prove they were more than just cosmic toddlers playing with matches. And as Thalassa watched her team, she knew they had a fighting chance. Against all odds, they were going to show the universe just what humans were capable of. The research dome on Europa was as comforting as a malfunctioning toaster, and just as likely to catch fire at any moment. Doctor. Thalassa Cree knew it was a gamble, but in the grand tradition of humanity, she was banking on a mix of ingenuity and sheer, bloody-minded stubbornness to see them through. "All right, folks," Thalassa said, standing at the helm of the control room, which had the ambience of a pressure cooker about to blow. "We're about to convince a bunch of ancient, presumably all-knowing aliens that we're not just a cosmic accident." Dex leaned against a terminal, arms crossed with the nonchalance of someone who had long ago accepted that life was a series of unfortunate events. "And if they don't buy it, what's Plan B? Group therapy. Plan B is not dying horribly," Thalassa replied, her eyes scanning the room. "Let's make sure we never have to use it." Ravi, buried in a tangle of outdated cables and duct tape, was muttering to himself in a language that was less binary and more colorful. "I've got the signal ready to go. It's patched into the stabilization unit. If this works, we're going to beam our message courtesy of our charming clones." Ingrid, who had been typing furiously at her station, glanced up, lips pursed like she was sucking on a particularly sour lemon. "Charming is not the word I'd use for them, more like barely holding it together." "That's humanity in a nutshell," Dex quipped. "Barely holding it together since the dawn of time." Thalassa couldn't help but smirk. "And yet here we are trying to play chess with beings who probably invented the board." Ingrid sighed, but there was a hint of a smile hiding beneath her usual discontent. "I suppose there's something to be said for audacity. Or insanity," Ravi added, checking the status of the signal. "All right, the clones are in position. Ready to send the message whenever you give the word." Thalassa took a deep breath, the weight of their mission pressing down like an elephant on a trampoline. "Let's give the universe a show." "Hit it, Ravi." With a flourish that would have made any conductor proud, Ravi initiated the transmission. The room buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with the kind of tension that usually precedes an explosion or a revelation. As the signal pulsed outward, the alien symbols on the display began to shift and dance, taking on a new rhythm like a cosmic heartbeat. It was as if they had struck a chord, one that resonated across the vast, unknowable distances of space. "Look at that," Ravi murmured, awe creeping into his voice. "It's like they are listening. Or laughing," Dex said dryly. "Wouldn't blame them if they were." "Let's hope it's the kind of laugh that ends with a handshake, not a death ray," Thalassa replied, eyes glued to the monitor. The symbols continued their erratic dance, shifting into patterns that defied their previous static nature. It was mesmerizing, hypnotic, and completely nerve-wracking. The silence in the room was palpable, each person holding their breath as they waited for the alien response. Suddenly the terminal beeped, a sharp, almost accusatory sound that made everyone jump. Ravi checked the incoming data, his expression shifting from confusion to something dangerously close to hope. "They're responding," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Can you understand it?" Thalassa asked, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Sort of," Ravi replied, his eyes scanning the screen. "They're curious, intrigued. I think they're beginning to see us as equals." "Equals," Ingrid snorted. "Did they hit their heads on a cosmic rock or something?" "It's the clones," Ravi explained, pointing to the data. "They're fascinated by our use of cloning technology. It's a unique approach they apparently didn't expect from a level 0 species." Thalassa couldn't suppress a grin, the first genuine smile she'd worn in what felt like eons. "We've shown them we're not just a bunch of cosmic toddlers." Dex chuckled, shaking his head. "Who would have thought? Humanity's greatest strength, doing the unexpected." The alien response continued to unfold, a communication that was as much emotion as it was information. The alien symbols seemed to shimmer with a new intensity, a vibrancy that suggested they were reevaluating their assessment of humanity. "Looks like they are impressed by our creativity," Ravi said, translating the data, "and our ability to adapt. Adaptation's in our DNA," Thalassa said. "It's what makes us, us." Ingrid, ever the skeptic, leaned back in her chair. "So, what now? Do we invite them over for tea and scones?" "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Thalassa replied. "But this is a start, a chance to open a dialogue. And maybe," Dex added, "a chance to not get wiped off the cosmic map." The team exchanged weary smiles, the kind that said they had been through the fire and come out the other side, singed but whole. It was a victory, albeit a tentative one, a step toward the unknown that felt strangely exhilarating. The alien response began to fade, the symbols slowly returning to their dormant state. But the message had been clear, and the implications profound. Humanity had shown it could stand toe-to-toe with the universe, at least for now. "All right, team," Thalassa said, her voice carrying a new authority. "Let's get to work solidifying this connection. We've got a lot to prove, and not just to them but to ourselves." Ravi nodded, already deep into code, his fingers flying over the keys. "I'll keep refining the signal, make sure it's stable. Ingrid, keep an eye on the clones. They're our ambassadors now," Thalassa instructed. "Don't worry," Ingrid replied, her voice dry as Europa's surface. "I'll make sure they don't start a diplomatic incident." Dex pushed away from the terminal, stretching his back with an audible crack. "Guess we just took one giant leap for mankind, huh? Or a small step," Thalassa said, her smile a mix of relief and fatigue. "Either way, we're still standing." As the team settled back into their roles, the weight of their achievement slowly sunk in. They had played their hand, and it had paid off in a way none of them had dared hope. Thalassa watched her team, their focus renewed, their determination infectious. They were a ragtag bunch, flawed and irreverent, but they were hers, and together they had done something remarkable. "Hey, Thalassa," Dex called, pulling her from her thoughts. "You ever think about what comes next?" She met his gaze, the hint of a smile tugging at her lips. "Survival, mostly. And maybe, just maybe, showing the universe that we're more than just a level 0 species." His grin widened, and for a moment the room felt a little less like a ticking time bomb and more like a place where anything was possible. "And if we screw it up?" he asked, his tone light but edged with seriousness. "Then we'll do what we always do," Thalassa replied. "Adapt, improvise, and try not to die in the process." The room filled with laughter, the sound a balm against the ever-present tension. It was the laughter of people who had faced the abyss and lived to tell the tale, the kind of laughter that bound them together in a way words never could. As the hours wore on, the team worked tirelessly, each member driven by the knowledge that they had made contact with something so much greater than themselves. It was daunting and exhilarating, a reminder of humanity's potential and its resilience. For Thalassa, it was a moment to savor, a testament to the power of human spirit and ingenuity. They had faced the unknown and come out stronger, more united than ever before. And as the lights flickered and dimmed around them, a not-so-gentle reminder of the dome's precarious state, Thalassa couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Because if there was one thing humanity was good at, it was rising to the occasion, even when the odds were stacked against them. In the end, it wasn't just about proving themselves to the aliens. It was about proving to themselves that they could rise above their level 0 status, that they could be more than what the universe had labeled them. As she glanced around the control room, at the faces of her team, Thalassa felt a surge of pride. They might be a ragtag bunch of cosmic toddlers, but they were her cosmic toddlers, and they had just taken the first step into a larger world. All right, everyone, she said, her voice carrying a note of finality. Let's get back to work. We've got a universe to impress. And with that, the team plunged back into their tasks, fueled by the knowledge that they had accomplished the impossible and that maybe, just maybe, they could do it again. The team was in a state of what could optimistically be described as not panicking, which for them was as close to a victory parade as they'd ever get. Thalassa stood at the head of the control room, her eyes fixed on the flickering holographic display. It was like trying to interpret the dance of a drunken octopus, but now they had a shot at understanding it. The alien council had acknowledged them, and that was more than they'd hoped for. So, we didn't get vaporized, Dex said, leaning back in his chair with a grin that was equal parts relief and disbelief. I call that a win. Let's not get too comfortable, Ingrid chimed in, her voice dripping with the usual brand of pessimism. For all we know, this could be the universe's version of giving us the finger. Ravi shrugged, his fingers still flitting over the console like a man playing a piano that's actively trying to eat him. Hey, at least we're in the conversation now. I mean, sure, it's a conversation with the cosmic equivalent of a shotgun aimed at our heads, but we're talking. The mood in the dome was cautiously optimistic, which for them meant they were still expecting the worst but were pleasantly surprised when it didn't immediately happen. Thalassa let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Well, we showed them we can be more than just their science project's control group. Maybe next time they'll send an invitation instead of a death squad, Ingrid snorted. Next time. Credit where it's due, Thalassa, but let's not start planning the welcome party just yet. Ravi, ever the optimist, or glutton for punishment, looked up from his screen. What do you think they'll do with our cloning tech? He asked. Ingrid's expression soured further. Probably put it on display in their Look What the Monkeys Made museum, or, Dex interjected, they realize it's a terrible idea and start cloning us to see how we cope with all this doom. Maybe they'll just clone our optimism, Thalassa said dryly. That'd be a first. As the banter bounced around the room, the reality of their achievement began to sink in. They'd done it. They'd reached out and caught the attention of beings far beyond their comprehension. Sure, those beings were likely a mix of curious, annoyed, and mildly entertained, but it was progress. The room hummed with the quiet rhythm of work, the team diving into the aftermath with gusto. Ravi focused on tweaking the signal, ensuring their message could be sustained, an ongoing job that assured him a lifetime of back pain and eye strain. Ingrid was left to monitor the clones, those unlikely diplomats who had, against all odds, not started an interstellar incident. Keep an eye on them, Thalassa had said, which to Ingrid meant making sure they didn't accidentally trigger World War clone. Dex, on the other hand, was relegated to morale duty. Keep everyone's spirits up, he mumbled, repeating Thalassa's orders from earlier. Yeah, nothing says happy crew like impending doom. Thalassa, meanwhile, turned her attention to the larger picture, the what now of it all. They might have made contact, but they were far from safe. The dome was still more duct tape than structure, and the threat of sabotage loomed like a particularly persistent hangover. It was one thing to impress the universe. It was another to survive it. So, Thalassa, Dex called, pulling her from her reverie. What's next on the agenda? Save the universe from itself, or just us from it? She laughed, a short, sharp sound that felt surprisingly good. First, we make sure we don't blow up. Then we might consider saving the universe. Baby steps, Dex, baby steps. Ravi, never one to miss an opportunity, piped up. Or clone steps. They're like baby steps, but with more existential dread. Dex shook his head, amused. Speak for yourself. I'm at peace with my existential dread. It's the rest of the universe that needs to catch up. The team settled into a rhythm, each person diving into their tasks with a mix of determination and gallows humor that had become their trademark. They'd come a long way from where they'd started, cosmic nobodies on a frozen moon, struggling to keep their heads above water. Now they were, well, still struggling but with a bit more panache. Ingrid was the first to break the silence that had fallen over the room, her voice cutting through the air like a serrated knife. You know, it's funny. We keep talking about proving ourselves to these aliens, but maybe the real challenge is proving ourselves to, well, ourselves. Ravi nodded, tapping a few keys with a flourish. Yeah, like therapy, but with less crying and more existential terror. Speak for yourself, Dex muttered. I'm still working through my issues with that last near-death experience. And the one before that? Ingrid asked with mock sincerity. He shrugged. That one's just in the queue. Thalassa, watching her team with a mixture of pride and exasperation, couldn't help but smile. They were a mess, but they were her mess. And together they'd done the impossible. The future was as uncertain as ever, but in that uncertainty lay potential. Potential to adapt, to grow, and maybe, just maybe, to thrive. So, she said, her voice cutting through the noise, let's get real. If we're going to prove we're more than a level 0 species, we've got to do more than just survive. We've got to thrive, innovate, maybe even lead. Dex raised an eyebrow, intrigued. Lead, huh? You thinking we could end up on some intergalactic council? Thalassa smirked. Hey, if we can convince them we're not just a bunch of bumbling idiots, anything's possible. I dunno, Ravi mused. Bumbling idiots have a certain charm. Charm doesn't cut it when you're negotiating with beings who can probably rearrange your atoms with a sneeze, Ingrid pointed out. But hey, we're here, and that's something. It was something indeed. They'd taken the first step into a much larger world, one that promised as much danger as it did opportunity. But if there was one thing the team knew how to do, it was adapt. No matter what the universe threw at them, they'd figure it out. The terminal beeped, drawing everyone's attention. Ravi checked the incoming data, his brow furrowing with concentration. Looks like the aliens want to keep talking. They're sending more data our way. Good, Thalassa said, her tone firm. Let's keep the conversation going. If we're going to survive out here, we need allies, not enemies. Yeah, because more friends means more people to point at when things go wrong, Dex joked, earning a collective eye roll from the room. Exactly, Thalassa replied, deadpan. And if we play our cards right, maybe we can even teach them a thing or two about duct tape engineering. The laughter that followed was genuine, a release of tension that had been building for far too long. It was the laughter of a team that had faced the abyss and come out the other side, scarred but unbroken. The hours passed in a blur of activity, the team working tirelessly to solidify their newfound connection with the alien council. There were setbacks, of course, glitches in the system, moments of doubt, but they pushed through, driven by the knowledge that they were part of something larger than themselves. As the day drew to a close, Thalassa took a moment to step back and survey the scene. Her team was exhausted but resolute, their determination infectious. They'd taken a giant leap for humanity, and while the road ahead was long and fraught with challenges, they were ready to face it. Hey, Thalassa, Ravi called, breaking her train of thought. You think we'll look back on this and laugh? She considered the question, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. Probably. Either that or cry. Maybe both, Dex chuckled. A good cry never hurt anyone except maybe their dignity. Dignity's overrated, Ingrid chimed in, surprising no one. Survival's where it's at. And survive we will, Thalassa declared, her voice filled with conviction. One step at a time. The room fell into a comfortable silence, each member lost in their thoughts. They'd come so far, achieved so much, but there was still work to be done. The universe wasn't going to impress itself after all. As the lights flickered and dimmed, a reminder of the dome's perpetual state of disrepair, Thalassa couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. They might be a ragtag bunch of cosmic toddlers, but they'd just taken a step into a larger world, and that was worth celebrating. All right, everyone, she said, her voice carrying a note of finality. Let's call it a day. We've got a universe to impress, and we'll need our strength. The team exchanged tired smiles, gathering their things and heading toward the exit. They'd won a small victory, but the battle was far from over. There were still challenges to face, obstacles to overcome, but they'd do it together. As they filed out of the control room, Thalassa took one last look at the holographic display, the alien symbols shifting and shimmering with latent potential. It was a reminder of how far they'd come, and how far they had yet to go. With a deep breath, she flipped the lights off and followed her team out into the uncertain future, her heart filled with equal parts trepidation and excitement. After all, they'd already beaten the odds once. Who's to say they couldn't do it again? And as the door closed behind her, sealing the room in darkness, she felt the faintest flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd find their place among the stars.